Okay. Good morning.
Hello, good morning. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good afternoon to everyone. We are back here for the live series number 3, in which we are actually all discussing the citizen economic empowerment law that's actually ongoing. Let me start off by saying that there is no law. The consultation process of the actual formation of the law is actually what we are actually doing. The law hasn't been passed yet. So let me just correct that for those that are assuming that there is a law that's already in place. My name is Mukitsi Benedict Tegere. I will be the one guiding the questions. Today's panel is being led by Pinkie. I will not take much time to talk a bit about her, but I'll allow her in 2 seconds or so to just briefly tell us about herself and make her contribution. And the procedure for the participants is as follows. Please, once you join, mute yourself. There will be a time allocated for your participation in the form of questions. You are also allowed to actually raise questions in the chat box. You are also allowed to make your contribution verbally. You raise your hand. You don't need to raise your hand by hand, but you just press one of the buttons there, then we will unmute you and we will allow you to make your participation. And let me just also mention that the input is being shared with Business Botswana, who will ultimately share this input with the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry, who are the owners of this particular assignment. So I think without taking much time, I would like to hand over at this point to Metau. I think we have, do you want to just unmute Meta and go ahead?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's after midday, right? Am I audible? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, please.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes,
Good afternoon, everybody. Like Retekere said, my name is Pinkie. Today, I'm here representing every person that says Motswana. I am a Motswana, and I would like to contribute meaningfully to the economy and ensure that my voice is heard. I'm not an expert in law, but for today, I am going to try as much as possible for us to come up with possible suggestions, possible ways to give feedback to what has hindered us and what we would like to see changed to ensure that every person can reach their full potential. I have my opinion, but today it's for me to listen more than anything. Retegera, I hope you got the little PowerPoint that I gave, which will lead us in questions.
Right. I think we can proceed. I will share it as we go ahead.
Okay. As noted, the law that we want to add, contribute to is the Citizen Economic Empowerment Law. The Economic Empowerment Law is derived from the need to build capacity of a nation to respond to changing economy and political environment. So my first question, and what I would like us to deliberate on, are there programs, policies, frameworks, or regulations that prohibit Botswana to contribute meaningfully and to reach their potential. This is a question to the floor. We only have 40 minutes, so it's imperative to maximize on the time we have. My floor is open. Questions and comments.
Meta, I don't know if you're still there with us. Your screen seems to have gone on freeze mode. We've also made you host in case you have any presentation you would like to show from your side.
Not a tech office, so I have absolutely no idea.
Okay, yeah, I think you switch off the mic and you could
Oh, we're back.
your presentation if you would like.
Yes, my first question is specifically that, are there any laws, regulations, or frameworks that we believe are limiting Motswana from reaching their full potential?
Okay, Paco seems to have want to respond. I think Paco, you can go ahead. Okay, there's a suggestion that we should try to not share video so that you know the bandwidth is a bit better for other people. Meta, do you just want to cut off your video? Paco, Dick, we have given you the platform to go ahead so that you can make your comment. Okay, I just want to check if Meta is still there with us. There seems to be a connection problem from her side. So the question that she asked is that, what are the barriers that are actually making Botswana not be able to reach full potential as citizens? So I think, Paco, I'm gonna lower your hand and I've unmuted you so that you can speak. Anybody else with a burning maybe response to this, you could just make a comment, we'll unmute you. Okay, we have a response there on the chat box from Anthony. He actually says, I do not believe there is any law that inhibits us, Botswana, from economic growth and participation. On the contrary, I believe government of Botswana is trying to assist Botswana. However, there is no law that enhances our participation. So I think just in responding to that, Anthony, maybe I just want you to expand this a bit. Do you therefore think that this law that is being proposed is not the actual answer to what you are saying? Because just catching on to the discussions that we've had from the live series 1 and 2, you know, a lot of the Botswana that participated in series 1 spoke about that they feel the approach in which policy is developed in Botswana is from a top-down approach. It's not actually from a bottom-up approach. So there's a suggestion in terms of that actual participation. What instrument should we therefore put in place to make sure that this is all inclusive? And I think this is what this law is trying to call for. And then the other issue that stemmed out yesterday is that Botswana actually lack finance. For example, you know, funding all across the board, you know, either to start a business. So before we even go to the element of empowering Botswana, we just need to acknowledge that Botswana do not have funding. Because even if you created the laws and you created the policies, if the person does not have the instrument, which is the capital, they cannot set up that business, or they cannot run that business successfully. So that's just to give you perspective as others are thinking about responding to this. The other comment we have coming from Kagiso Klase is that there is no law, but there is also no proper environmental setup to enable Botswana to be economically active. So I think just responding back to the discussion that's ongoing is that, just to bring you back to the purpose of this discussion or this platform, we are actually looking for an instrument. So it's all good that we're saying there is no law, and also there is no proper environmental setup. But how do we influence that? So what I would like to get from you, Kagiso, and also Anthony, is how do we instrument within this citizen economic empowerment law, or within what is the solution at the end? Because if something doesn't exist, only us, the Botswana, can come up with a solution. So we would like to know you know, molao ga o yo gape ga gona participation. Re ire yang gore go kgone gore go nne yang. We also have another comment from Nalin saying that all Botswana, mostly in agricultural business, and all it says all Botswana, I guess he's trying to say all Botswana are mostly involved in agricultural business and are expert in the business. Maybe to ask you again there, Nalin, to make a comment. The issue is, if Botswana are actually involved in agricultural business, how come the import bill is so huge? I mean, for me, where I'm sitting, if a lot of Botswana are experts in business, then how come we are not seeing the import bill go down? We're not seeing that. So anyway, this is just in the chat box. Please continue sharing your views. I will at this point open up for those who are willing to speak on voice. I'll allow Lembi Kalerwa to make a comment. Lembi, please go ahead.
Hello. Hi. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Just go ahead.
Okay, good. Okay, good. I'm a farmer, so I think I can only just chip in for the moment. I can just chip in from the industry that I'm in, and I'm tempted to agree with the speaker who wrote that there's no proper environmental setup to allow for Botswana businesses to advance. And from a farming perspective, besides the issue of land ownership, one of the biggest inhibitors to growth in our Aggregate sector, Botswana, is the fact that we don't have pricing models, our own pricing model as Botswana. And therefore, we're very dependent on the South African pricing model, which at the end of the day, we are not comparing like and like. The South African climate is very different from ours. Their setup in their farming sector is they're more advanced than we can ever be. So at any given point, the input costs are a Motswana farmer, considering that we do import all of our supplies from South Africa. By the time the input arrives at your doorstep, it's probably 30% more than what a South African farmer is paying. The cost of our utilities is significantly higher than South African, for example, motakase. And when we try to sell our produce, the benchmark is the South African price. And Motswana trying to sell tomatoes gets told by our chain stores, I can get this for 5 rands in South Africa. Therefore, you cannot expect me to be paying here 5 pula for the same thing. This unfair pricing, Botswana, it's not even pricing. Our goods our produce is taken away for next to nothing. The absence of a proper fair trade or proper pricing models that are ours, therefore robs Botswana producers of being able to attain prices that allow them to grow the industry. I think that is the point I'm trying to get to. So in trying to develop a citizen empowerment law, it should not be done because all we see is reservation of this business for citizens, reservation of that for citizens. It should not just be reservations, but it should be a total review of each industry and its specifics that actually do hinder our progression. The other thing that also happens more agriculture is the participation of government inside the agri sector. When you look at institutions like BAM from our crop sector, for example, BAM is an agent. That is the mandate. The mandate on which it was created has somehow evolved to now BAM being an agent. So basically, they just take from you, and they are the middlemen between you and the actual consumers of your produce. And because now their mandate has become very singular in that they want to be profit making, the easiest way to make profit is to keep your costs low. So their biggest cost driver is obviously the produce that they buy. So what they do then is they put the price down for you, the farmer, so that they are able to realize a profit when they sell now to the miller or to you, the public that come in to buy some of these produce that we do produce. Which then still translates to Botswana farmers are getting ripped off. We are not able to actually realize prices that allow us to grow our businesses because of this middleman that exists inside of here called BAM. Right now, as we speak, speaking of BAM, still speaking on BAM, BAM has started now encroaching on veterinary services, encroaching on sales of services that are offered by veterinary professionals. We have a lot of Botswana vets that could be venturing into private sector, elite vet. They're reaching out to all the far-flung places still we farm from Botswana. But somehow BAM has encroached into the space. This is very unfair for Botswana professionals that are trying to grow into that space because, first of all, remember, BAM doesn't pay taxes when they import whatever vaccines and medications that they bring into the country. The business is the facilities that operate are government facilities, therefore they don't have rentals. A lot of their cost actually is paid for by government, e.g. salaries, MD, marketing manager and chief operations officer. Therefore, a lot of their costs, you, the Motswana vet, would actually have to factor into your pricing. They don't have to. So they're always going to be your biggest competitor. And mind you, BAM is government. So the presence of government inside this sector here is hindering Botswana professionals who could be offering these professional services and therefore growing the vet space more Botswana. The same thing can be said for BMC. The same thing can be said for BITC deciding to offer a one-stop shop where people don't have to approach Lembi Mereki or I'm Pulele a company or open bank accounts for me, and BITC is offering services that are at that basic level. Those are some of the things that I feel create a lot of hindrances for Botswana to move forward. All right, thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Lembi. That was a beautiful contribution. I would love for you to just maybe, you know, if you had closed it by saying to us, here is a solution in terms of the actual supply systems that you question. Here is a solution in terms of the trade, the way in which South Africa is probably stifling Botswana's agricultural growth, and also the issue of just the market itself. So I would love for you to just maybe in 1 or 2 lines in the chat box to write for us what you think would actually be a good way to generate evidence for us to influence and change the policy so that we can address the particular problem you addressed from an agriculture perspective. So maybe let me ask another colleague who's raised his hand there. I see Kagiso Tlase again. And also, we just maybe before I go there, we also just have a suggestion that, look, my simple suggestion is to copy the BBE legislation of South Africa and simply amend it to reference Botswana. That legislation is comprehensive and very effective, and I believe we can accomplish what government of Botswana are trying to achieve. We can leverage off 20 years of their experience. Yeah, well, I won't comment on this, but just feedback that we did discuss this yesterday. Is it appropriate that, you know, we want to bundle Botswana similarly to South Africa? Remember, we never put ourselves first. So I want us to be very selfish about what we would like to see Gaborone. Compare and comparison. Ari doing yaga, you know, Lempiana Buahor, Rona, where we sit. What is the practicality? If something doesn't work, this CCE, the approach, so I want the direction of the conversation to take that platform. Also, I want us to be open-minded in terms of really having this online discussion have solutions in the end. So I would like to allow you again, Kagiso Tlase, to comment.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I want to add on to that agriculture thing. My experience is that we struggle with utilities in those areas, but are willing to step up and do something, especially when we talk about food security and all that. One of the things that you notice that I've seen before, somewhere there near Pantamatengo, where somebody had to throw away all the tomatoes, and that was because there was nothing to preserve them, because it was far from all these utilities, and there was a beautiful produce that had to go to waste. So the other thing that we should advocate for is that electricity, at least that. For water, we can try to do boreholes and what have you, but electricity should be allowed to crisscross these farms in this country, so that we can see Botswana rising up to that. I've seen during this lockdown that Botswana are now keen to go out there and produce. So I think is that when we talk about citizen empowerment in Botswana, a lot of times it doesn't benefit the indigenous Motswana. I have to say this, and I need to apologize for it ahead of time. I work closely with a lot of these guys you refer to, like India. These guys, but beraka jam, why get about dominate? Kalemaga gore bone ka bone. But the network. So that network is one that is actually making them continue to dominate. I work in a bank. Banking guys. That's one thing I noticed. By the time I start expansion mode, somewhere. There are so many shops of these guys. Can I contact someone? There's one who how he started the restaurant and gave it to the other guy, and then he went to start something else and what have you. So you find that the so-called indigenous Motswana rona ga rena kganyentse nyalo go tlile.
Now I particularly understand you very well, where you are coming from. And you know, I've traveled the continent, Africa, and I can tell you this thing Botswana habana madi. Anybody outside the border we are wealthy. Botswana deliberate. If these guys are not financing themselves through institutions, so how then do we say through them what we call angel funding? Because what you're explaining, the way these guys angel investing, somebody who so I want you to just help us with that as we are thinking, and we'll put it back to Metau, just as the lead panel for this.
Can I please ask before you go further? We are leaving some people out. Please ensure that we all speak in English so that we are all included.
Okay, noted. So you're right about the angel investing. Like I said, I wanted to study a model because I was feeling bad for my country people, because I was dealing with lots of Botswana businesses and I was seeing their downfall. Upon sitting down with some of them, at least I might say there's a positive that I managed to get out of them for them to go back to profitability and survive. But one thing I noticed is that since we're talking about the law, there's this thing that is lacking. I think that is also killing Botswana. We do not have a way to protect each other, especially when we owe each other money. There's nothing like that. I just wish there would be a law, because the justice system in this country, when you owe somebody money, it will take you forever to get back your money. And I think that's the fear a lot of us have in saying, let me put my few thousand dollars on this guy's business and see what I will get out of it. So there's just no proper legislation in terms of these kind of partnerships that are localized. So when you go invest in someone, I've seen businesses just collapsing because of that, where Motswana is involved and try to do a partnership, because there's no law that protects that. You find that the justice system takes forever, and then people give up and say, you know what, I'll rather go at it on my own. There are some Botswana who have money, who are willing to invest, but the question that they have is, how are they going to get it back?
But just to respond on that, because you know, I play in that space here, angel investing. Here's how it works. Angel investing is me giving you money based on trust and using my network. So there's, as far as I know, you know, people that are wealthy belong to certain asset classes and they don't want to be known. So I think what we can do is perhaps, should we then call for a way of formalizing a new instrument, a new funding instrument? How do we do that? Because for me, as you say this, I think about how UB was actually built. If funding, so how do we then instrument that as a way re-empower more element in sustenance on themselves? Because the next person I will pocket their, but they could be the person who could invest in your particular enterprise without you having to knock on different banks.
Maybe to sort of get us to get to a point, is there any way you can share with us, even if it's through the chat box, in terms of probably mutual funds and how we can leverage those? Because I think Botswana are more comfortable with a mutual fund than I am with Retegere, for example, investing in my business. And this goes back to legislation that works in other countries and not in ours. A lot of the economical platforms that we have are not geared to the Motswana and the mindset of Motswana. I am, as a Motswana, I'm more comfortable to invest through a mutual fund, but I don't understand the mutual funds also. So is there any law
That's exactly,
that you would suggest to be tweaked or put in place, or how it may read? As the clock puts it, we are at 8 minutes. So if you could put that on the chat, the group chat, to make your suggestion on how we can do that. Another point that probably we missed is the fact that some of our listeners, our participants, are highlighting that some of the laws are designed based on other people's laws. They're not for Botswana. How do we tailor make it to the Motswana here? How do we make sure that the agricultural sector is protected for the Motswana, and that the Motswana actually becomes a buyer? It will find access to buying, because I think the challenge of capital, raising capital, is the buyer. And I think the point Lembi was raising, though I didn't hear her full contribution, was that competing with somebody who already has a pricing. Oh, I'm not audible?
We can hear you.
Okay. Competing with government is our biggest thing. How do we make sure that government buys from us in bulk without having to go through a tender system, for example? If it's about vaccines that I've created, how do we make sure that we are able to expand that vaccine so that we can cater for the market? How do we how do we become liquid enough? How do we unleash capital or equity on that?
Yeah, thank you very much, Matao. I guess they hear. So I think just maybe to before we give back to you, Matao, there's a comment there that our challenges are allowing some people to control the whole food chain from the farmer to the retailer. There should be laws prohibiting this. Some chain stores sell chicken and are chicken farmers also, for example. Okay, I'm just gonna read that. I'm just gonna say also, just guys, remember there's something called free or economy. So let's say everything. But the other point there is that by Andile Tau, he says that I think our legislation should promote diversification of the economy. For example, we should seek to empower creators of intellectual property. We have extensive protection of intellectual property rights. But now we need to take the next step to empower and pay the creators. Take music, for example. Perhaps radio should have a quota imposed by law for music. So I think we hear that. So I think the essence of the discussion, Matthew, is that there seems to be a strong need to have an instrument around the food or the agriculture value chain. So perhaps from your own perspective, how do we then instrument it going forward?
Part of the reason why we lose out, I think, on agriculture, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of people will shy away from it because there's no guaranteed payment. If you look at the Motswana every month to afford to pay rent, utilities, and so forth. Now, if there is no real buyer, if the value chain is not developed enough for us to have a guaranteed buyer at the end of every month or at the end of such and such, be it something that I came up with, be it something that I'm feeding into a different value chain. For example, the example on the tomatoes. Botswana NAFTEC has properties that are able to make tomato puree and tomato sauce. But we are not able to develop that because they, on the other hand, are only a researcher. But we need the capital to develop the factory for those tomatoes to go there. How then can we ensure that we have regulation that will protect that space and say we are growing this value chain? What are some of the laws that we can align that will protect if the tomato sauce that I'm making has a specific, it's an intellectual property per se, how does it protect from then, so that I have competitive advantage against all gold, for example? How do we protect our own competitive advantage and build those value chains?
Right.
What are the laws that would keep and protect our competitive advantage, both as a farmer and as a buyer?
Okay. I was just going to comment also that Stuart has just made a comment there saying that, you know, government should identify people with land and try to help them set up, you know, business. You know, we hear this, but I think it needs to be really focused to say, you know, because that is already in the guide questions, but how then does it benefit all Botswana? How do we do that land audit? And how do we ultimately help build those businesses? Then the issue of the mutual fund. Are we saying that we want an agriculture mutual fund that actually can help with food security? So I guess I'm not really answering, but I'm just guiding what the discussion has said. But also there's an issue here, coming from Kagiso, is that what is missing is the money locally. Just in 30 seconds, Metau, your perspectives before we come to an end.
I'll keep referring, I'll try and sum up all the points as highlighted. One would be what needs to happen for those funds to be released, so that we are not starting our businesses or on a loan basis. Two, we need to consider, or can, as Lembip said, the price competition will be a challenge. If now I have to hire all the other people, can Batho not come and work at my farm? Three, we are selling agricultural land to foreigners in a lot of ways, even the residential land, because we want money. Is there no law that we can form that would say, I will earn a concession in the time that I've given you the land, such that I don't lose out on the land, but still continue to earn off of it? Because if you give me 20,000 for my team, 20,000 will be gone before the end of the year. And that non-indigenous Motswana would have carried away land. We are too few to afford land that can just go.
All right.
Intellectual property, we haven't really leveraged that in Botswana. And Botswana need to be educated on what intellectual property is, including indigenous knowledge. And that's where government needs to play instead of competing with the Motswana. Government needs to help us have geological indicator status to protect even indigenous knowledge, so that all the different herbs in Botswana can still retain value